Hi, everyone. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
And
we can.
Okay, cool. So should we go ahead and start then?
I think it's 4 minutes past the hour, I suddenly say.
Okay, so let's start with the project and individual updates.
Okay. We submitted a talk proposal to that's the scorecard talk proposal that got accepted. I was the one who added that link on that specifically. Brian from Google and I submitted a talk proposal in the Linux Foundation Member Summit, and it got accepted. I just want to let everybody know about that. That's my individual update on that.
Cool. Congrats. Cool. So if nobody else has any other individual updates, let's move on to the agenda items for this week. And also briefly, I forgot to introduce myself. So I'm Raghav. I work at Google on Scorecard. Okay, so now agenda. The first one is Univine.
Yes, if you don't mind, can you open that item?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Scroll down a little, please. Yes, yes. Okay, perfect. So we have Scorecard API right now. My proposal is we don't have a way to, the API is great because now we are able to get all the information, but we don't have a way to fetch any of the historical data. The historical data is in a big query. We have about 35 million records in that. So people are jumping through hoops to get that. So my proposal is, and also there are two things to it. One is historical data. Another one thing is we also run scans every week. We take commit SHAs and we add them to our data set that we store in our buckets with commit SHA also. The problem is our end consumers aren't aware of what scans they can go pick up. So the problem with that is they always get the latest. They always get the tip. My proposal is very similar to Dev. The Dev has has an option called scan dates, which essentially adds all the scan dates. And then essentially consumers can query the scan date, get the list of scan dates, then use those scan date to add as an additional parameter to the data that is there that they can fetch. This gives an option to two things. One is it gives an option to get historical data, which is in the BigQuery table. I'll talk about how to get that into buckets so that APIs can, people using API can access that. I want to initially talk about the second one, which is essentially on every scan, at the end of the scan, we can update that information of when the last scan date was. It's a running list so that we can utilize, we also store our, we should also store our results with the scan date. So essentially like how we store with the commit SHA. And the last one that I want to talk about is take all this BigQuery data, dump it into the buckets so that we can get the historical data in that. That's my proposal. So I'm thinking today, anybody has thoughts, comments, thinks it's a bad idea?
So how does it work right now? The API, is there a single bucket that the
Yes,
latest
it's a single bucket.
JSON?
It's a single bucket with multiple docs, like multiple folders. We take every scan, we store it with the commit SHA, we store it with the latest, and we also store with raw results. We store in multiple paths the same. The raw results are different from that, but we store that in all in a single bucket.
All right, so I guess you talked about going back with a one-off job to dump historical data into like a date prefix path, but other than that, going forward, it's not like it's any more data, right?
No, going forward is every time we run historical scan, like every time we run our cron job, we take that data, we dump it into the bucket. That every time we dump it in, we also add a prefix of the date that we do that. So essentially historical data and any new data. And I also check, does buckets have any size limitations? The buckets doesn't have any size limitation. The buckets have only size limitation of a single file, cannot be larger than 5 terabyte. That's the only thing. But buckets are essentially infinitely scalable. So I don't think we are going to hit that limit pretty soon.
And what's the motivation to use dates over SHA?
Okay, so great question. So if I am an end user, like I want to know how's Kubernetes doing. So I want to know how's Kubernetes progress over last 6 months or last 2 years. So I can go ask, hey, give me all the commit SHAs that you have done. The issue with that is we have to maintain commit SHA history for 1 million repositories or 1.2 million repositories, and given an index for each one, what are the commit SHAs which we store on. It's a great thing that we can do. The easier option is to say, every time I run a historical, every time I run a cron job, that happens once a week, I'm going to keep a list, only one single list, which is all the dates that I ran the cron. That is the motivation. Hope that answers that question. It's easier on us to maintain 1.2 million times every week. That's times 52. That's 52 million items, and having that as a single every different API endpoint. Probably we can do that, but crawl, walk, run. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that like the API was made just to get the latest, essentially due to, wanting like to be simple and to just do what we could do at that point in time. Yeah, I think it's totally understandable that people, as a more expanded full featured API, you could get historical data. What are you proposing here? Other than like the technical solution, like, or do you want to go ahead and implement this?
Yes, I want to go implement this, but
okay.
I want two things on this. I want people to tell me if I'm wrong in the start process. Technically, I still haven't dived, like I just gave an overview. I didn't say how I'm going to do that, like, which kind of says how it is. But those are my thought process. Instead of more of technical, I want to say why this will add value, and do people see it as not a good solution on this.
And do you think this, like, how achievable is this? Is it a lot of work, or?
It's not super. It is. I want to take this up, so obviously I'm not gonna throw it on somebody else to do that. Only that's the reason I am talking about this. It's not. The adding the data is pretty easy. That's one file where I need to manipulate that. That's one file. Taking the existing data and dumping it into that's a job. That's a one-off job that I have to write to take all of the 35 million entries and write that into bucket. That's a little time. That may be a little more work. It's not a single file change.
Cool. So if you don't hear any objections, does that mean I don't know how all the scorecard folks.
Right. I'm
Go
also gonna
forward,
hit up Laurent and Azim too, because
okay.
Azim is obviously done too much work on this. I want him
Okay.
to critique and say, hey, there's a problem here. I want that's the reason I brought this up. I will tag him, also hit him up in Slack to make sure I get a buy-in before I go down the rabbit hole of trying to implement this.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I'll just add from our team that's looking to use a lot of this data for certain commits, based in our like release pipelines, this would be very useful.
Rich, great. Can you please add that to the issue? Because I did hear from someone else, but it'll be helpful to say, as an end user, this is going to add value. It'll be great if you can add that, Rich.
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Cool.
Raghav,
So it sounds
yeah, right.
I know what to do next on this one.
Yes,
so,
I do know what to do next on this. I will hit up Azim to make sure I have that. Right.
Okay, cool. And
the next one, I wanted Lauren to be on this call. Okay, but I'll just bring it up. It's not. There's this feature that Aiden worked on, specifically bringing in dependency def. This motivated me to implement that API that right now, prior to that, I talked about how to go fetch the data, that we have it in a bucket, some of the work. And this is a phenomenal feature that for folks who don't know, this helps if anybody does any, for example, at least in Go, this was implemented. It'll show if you add a new dependency or remove, update an existing dependency, and what is the scorecard score for that dependency would show up in your PR, which is a great feature to say, okay, if I have a dependency that is not being maintained, should I add that or not? It's an afterthought, but this will add to your PR. It'll comment on your PR. So I was thinking of, I want to talk about what's happening on this feature. And I don't know if Aiden wants to pick it up. If somebody else is planning to pick it up, if not, I wanted to pick it up, and that's why I wanted to check on this. And there are about 3 or 4 PRs that are open and pending, couple here, couple in the actions repo. So that's why I want to talk about this specifically, because it's almost stale. It's roughly about 3 months old. This PR is, nothing has happened. Code is beating away. I want to make sure we don't lose track of this. And this will, again, add a lot of value to our end customers to say, hey, if I add a new dependency, am I getting these? Or they're flying blind. Let me be honest. I'm flying blind on what is my new dependency that I'm adding. So this will be a great feature. Okay, let me ask this question. Raghav, Spencer, are you guys planning to work on this specifically or any of that? If you have in plans, if not, I want to know if can I take it up.
I don't have any plans to work on this.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think just double checking with Laurent would be good. But
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm sure he'll be fine with you picking it up.
Yep. So, and I also wanted to know, there's a big thread in this PR. I want to make sure that we have a consensus of what is that is blocking this PR from merging in. it's easier sometimes to talk rather than just be on a PR. And that's why I brought this up as an issue over here.
So in general, what dependencies are changing, right? I see there is SBOM diff. I think people are using that. So why someone will use scorecard to do the diff?
Okay, you don't need to do a diff. So good question. Good question, Sripath. You don't need to do a diff. Like, take example, I have a Go mod file, add a new dependency. I want to know this new dependencies score for, take example, only for vulnerabilities or for maintenance. I want to know that before I bring this in. Now, it could be that or any of the transitive dependencies, because that is the biggest problem that we are flying blind. With this feature, it'll add tags, it'll add comments on your PR to say, hey, you are violating or any of that, and then you can mark them as required. And now you have better gates on stopping bad dependencies from getting into your code. It's like any other vulnerabilities, any of that. Did I answer your question, Sripa?
Yeah. That explains. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay.
This was super useful.
Okay, perfect. Yes. And I certainly see this as a great feature because, like I'm repeating, we're all flying blind, if not. Cool. Okay, I will take this up again. I already hit up Laurent on this, and I will probably talk to him again. Thanks.
Cool. So then, okay, there's a related PR to that one. And the next one is Varun. Should I open this link?
No, if it's okay, I can share my screen.
Oh yeah, sure. 1 second. Go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so as of now in Scorecard, for a couple of checks, it points to this tool. And what I want to talk about today is some improvements here. So, this is for the dependency pinning. And today what happens is that, users get redirected here and they can fix their workflow file. So let's say, I paste my workflow file here and click on secure workflow, then it, basically fixes it, and then they can copy it and use it. And this is good, but one of the problems here is that they have to do this for multiple workflows or multiple files. And, that just requires some repetitive work. So the update that I wanted to talk about is this feature where you can actually scan a whole repo and then create a pull request. So in here, what happens is that once you put in a repo, actually let me do the demo. And you click on analyze. So it it analyzes the workflows in that repository. And it basically does the same thing as the previous page, but it allows you to fix across workflow files. And, so let's say if I want to again pin actions and I choose 2 of them, then I can click on create a pull request. And what happens here is that, this forks the repository. So this stuff only works for public repositories. And it doesn't require installing any app. So it sort of forks the repo and creates the pull request. And so this is what it looks like once the pull request is created. Right. So instead of fixing each file here, like multiple files are fixed. Let me know if anybody had any questions so far.
What happens if you hit the preview link? Can I see what happens on that?
Yeah. So that's actually the same as what the current behavior is. So if I click on preview, it basically goes back to the same page.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, let me do for the pinning one. So here, it basically goes here and it uses the same, feature to show the preview.
This is cool. So it really reduces anybody from doing them. Like now, all of a sudden, they can go stick in their repository, fix like 14 instead of going and manually fixing each one of that. Really cool. Cool. Very cool. Very nice.
Yeah, and let me actually show you one of the. So this is actually where one of the open source maintainers actually used it in Flutter Gallery repo, and this is where, for example, multiple files are fixed together. So yeah, so this is
Can you go back to that PR? Can you go back to that PR? Can you click on the conversation? I'm gonna look at some things. Scroll down. It'll be nice if you can like sign your comments, because from the bot, because right now I'm just adding it as a feature. More and more things are looking for signed comments, so that it's for two things. One is it avoids not being manually signed. So if you sign it, that'll be a good feature. But this is cool.
Yeah.
And I also like it. You made it to individual commits so that I can cherry pick any of the commits that I want. If I disagree to some of that, that's really nice that you had it as individual files. That is also great.
Yeah, I think this is a good feedback about that DCO stuff. So definitely add that. And one of the things that I want to
prior to this, is this what license is this?
This
this is free. That is, anybody can use this.
Yeah, and this is basically the same stuff that we had here. So this is it's basically an addition to that initial page.
Sure.
Basically use the same APIs, but instead of doing one file at a time, it basically calls for multiple files. And in terms of creating a pull request, so it only allows one to do that if you have already contributed to that repository. So, it's like that is a sort of check built in. So first, it only works for public repositories, but even then, so let's say if I put in something where I've never contributed before, it will not let me create a pull request. And the idea is to just, have some, otherwise people might just go and create, thousands of PR. So, I mean, I'm open to feedback on that as well, but that's a check in it right now. Now, some of the other things, that are coming up here is that we've also recently added updating the dependabot config file, and that's also a scorecard check. So let's say if you have a dependabot file and that does not update some of the ecosystem things, like maybe it's not updating action, then that will also show up, in the near future. And similarly, for example, if you don't have a static analysis tool, so those are some things that it'll start showing that you can update your dependabot file, you can update your add a let's say code QL, and that I think we have to figure out based on the language what sort of SAST tool to show here. But yeah, I just wanted to demo this and get feedback.
Seems like it'll be way better for maintainers to use.
Okay. And also, there's this other thing, which is where you can actually see the scorecard score across repositories. And, that's something that I actually wanted to demo in the Alpha Omega meeting. And, and there I was told that maybe I should talk about that in the scorecard meeting or the securing critical projects. But let me know, if you want, I can also demo that. It basically shows you the scorecard score across repositories in an org, and for some of the alpha projects like Eclipse and so on, it can basically just help them view their score across projects.
So it's almost like a list wherein it shows, hey, here's your list of projects and here's the score.
Yeah, you know how in deps.dev you can see the score, but you have to see for individual repositories, right? So you have to go and see. But for example, let's say I wanted to look at it for my org,
Sure.
and I want to increase my scorecard score for the whole org, and I want to just have a view for my org. Then you can use that. I'm having this open here for just like a test org. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, so this is like, a test org. And here it lists down the repositories and has the scorecard score, and then it has the same sort of fixes. Which
Oh, so you can hit fix and it'll go do those fixes for you, like do a PR, let's assume.
It'll actually bring you to that same page
Sure.
that we saw,
Sure.
this sort of page. So, but these are just things at a different level of abstraction, right? So there is a page where you can fix a workflow, but then you can fix multiple workflows in a repo. And this one is just at a next level where you can see at an org level. But this is something which is not like it has to be set up for an org. It's not set up for all orgs. And I was hoping to, bring this up with some of the alpha projects, like Eclipse and all. Like if Eclipse projects, for example, is already doing scorecard analysis across repositories. And so if other similar organizations wanted to track it.
I have one question in this. Are you using the API to get this data?
No, not right now, but that's actually a good idea. So right now it actually runs scorecard through the CLI.
Okay, so you're like, you're going to burn your stuff rather use API because it's just there. You do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and especially with this historical stuff coming in, right? One can actually then see the improvement.
Right. If the historical stuff comes in, it opens a big can of worms. Look, people are going to use that to do a lot more. People are going to graph a lot with historical data, especially if it's in. Then they can use Python, fancy packages instead of jumping through hoops to get that. That's my thought process. Cool. Very nice. This is why I like this.
Yeah, let me know, how to make this sort of available to the projects that might want to use it at an org level. I'm also trying to do a similar demo in the Alpha Omega meeting.
If you use the API, then actually you would be able to, is this hosted in your, like what I'm trying to ask is, if you use the Scorecard API, public API, now it's only two API, or not two, like there are Scorecard API calls and GitHub API call to say, get me repositories for within this organization. And all of a sudden you mishmash them, you got this page. You don't need to run, you don't need to keep any state per se. You don't need to make any state. Then you can have an FQDN. Actually, this will be a great project to host within OpenSSF, because now every organization can go get the score. This would be a great project to hope. Sorry, I didn't mean to take away what you're doing, Varun, but but I'm trying to think for a little higher level as to what every organization, if they want to come and do this, how they can utilize this. Or if you want to propose this as a solution to OpenSSF, that'll be also be great.
Yeah, I think, one of the things is how quickly can this be set up for an org, and, who should be able to access. So right now, only I can access this because this is for my org, right? So it's been set up that way. And I don't know if it should be open for everyone.
Why do you have to set it up? Because if I can do one, let's assume I'm picking only 100 repositories for an organization from GitHub. Let's assume keeping it that simple, the use case, I don't need to manually set up. I go do one GitHub API call, give me all repositories. They take that 100, do 100 calls to Scorecard API. With 101 API calls, I have this page. I don't need to set up anything. On the fly, it can be done.
But then do you think that this should be open for all orgs, that anybody can view the score? Or
Yes. Fundamentally, the more open you are, because that's the whole idea. That's the fundamental reason Scorecard is pushing data open for everybody to consume. You're going to make it harder. By making it harder, it's not going to get secure. Might as well tell there's a problem by showing people what the problem is. That's my take.
Okay. Yeah, that's good feedback. Yeah, let me know, if anybody else had any thoughts. I just wanted to demo this stuff.
Cool. Thanks for the demo. So if that's all, should we move on to the next one? That is the, let's see, the zombie commits issue. This one. So who wants to, whose item was this one?
That was mine. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Chris. I work at IBM, and I submitted this issue. I think it'd be good, a good feature to have. I don't think it deserves maybe a full-on extra check, but it could be something that could be added to an existing check just to give it a little bit more, have a little bit more impact. What do you guys think?
If you don't mind, can you unpack what the zombie commits are for people who are unaware what it is, and then talk about what you're proposing? It'll be helpful.
Yeah, so it's just basically commits directly to the main branch that aren't attached to any pull requests.
Okay, makes sense. So it's direct commits without any PRs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Okay.
And the risk that Scorecard is trying to highlight here is that there's a series of commits that just haven't been reviewed, and there's no apparent branch protection that required them to be reviewed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my takeaway is Scorecard, I think, is trying to check this already in two different ways. Not that this would be useful as well, but one would be it's trying to check the current branch protection settings, and two is it's trying to check the code review, the code review checked if all commits are code reviewed. So I think this is a very good a very good metric to expose, but how do we message that to make it clear to whoever's running Scorecard, what this means compared to the other two, So I think we just need to, maybe integrate it with that code review check, or also, make the documentation and the UI really clear, kind of what the difference is and so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. For for sure, because I don't think it would deserve like a separate check, because there's checks that are extremely similar, like just exactly how you said. So
Burn?
Yeah, so on a similar note, I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding this right. So let's say I have a branch protection setting which prevents this from happening, right? There may be a scenario where someone changes branch protection and then does it and changes it back, or there's I think also a setting which allows administrators to override it, and I think that's what my understanding, but just want to confirm that the idea is that this checks whether such a thing, such a commit actually happened versus branch protection prevents it from happening, right?
yeah,
So
pretty much.
yeah, so they're sort of similar in the sense that if you have already not set up branch protection and this is also the case, then then it sort of just goes to show that you should set up branch protection. And if you have set up branch protection and then this happens, then maybe someone either disabled it or maybe an admin pushed it. So yeah, I just want to sort of think aloud, but seems like I agree that they're related. I have also commented there, but I've seen some projects actually have a detection around this, that they were running through a GitHub action and then it did something, maybe I don't know, created an issue maybe. But just wanted to also bring that up. I'll try to find where I saw this. Yeah, but that was all.
Yeah, I think that the way that the code review check works now, there was a recent change that I think may help we could like piggyback off of that, which is we went from checking like individual commits to like grouping commits based on the review activity that they're associated with. So like everyone on GitHub has like a different way of approaching code reviews. In fact, there are some like repositories on GitHub that are just like mirrored or something from like somewhere else, or have like some kind of like automated process that gets commits from like an internal SCM that like a company uses and then like pushes them to GitHub with like a bot or something. So there are like there's like a lot of different behaviors that are like possible, but what Scorecard does is like it'll check for there's like a construct called a change set, which is like basically checking if there's like an associated pull request or equivalent constructs in like other SCMs, like Fabricator. If there's like an associated differential revision, it'll kind of like attempt to do this based on looking at commit messages. And it does like go into code review scoring or calculation. So for example, if there is like a zombie commit today, I believe the way that Scorecard would handle it is by saying that commit, it's not it's just like it doesn't have code review on it, and it would like reduce the code review score. Now there's like, again, like a lot of ways to fool it because there's so many behaviors that people do with GitHub. So like if you tweak the commit message or whatever to make it look like it came from Fabricator, which some people legitimately do, it wouldn't count that as a zombie. Like Scorecard would not say that that's the zombie commit. It would say that it is a reviewed commit, but just on a different SCM. So I was wondering like if that like how that relates in your mind to this feature.
Yeah, it's tough because yeah, that is a problem. Like you said, when people mirror repositories, like if you were to run this on the mirror, it would just say that all the commits, the last 30, are all zombie commits. So that is like a problem that I noticed after I posted the issue, that it was like, if you run it on a repository like something that's mirrored, it's just not it's gonna look terrible. But yeah.
Just to understand the code review check, right? So does the code review check, look for that the commit had an associated pull request, or like I'm just trying to now understand how is it different from the zombie commit?
Yeah, it does look for an associated merge request, or if it's like, if it detects that this commit may have come from a different source code management system like Fabricator or Garrett or something like that, it'll also look for like differential revisions. And it's currently, for anything that's not GitHub, it's very permissive. But if it, yeah, but right now it does actually check if there's a GitHub associated like merge request in the code.
Okay. Okay.
My 2 cents on that is like, especially on repositories that have just automated commit pushes like this, almost all commits are going to have zombie commits. It's the anomalies that we want to really catch, because it's already there in our code review check, but it's down in depth. Like I think it's in the weeds as to based on message. String is where somebody can say, hey, this is a zombie commit. And that's why we bring down the score. One of the things Laurent was working still there is working on is the raw data, which we still don't have. That will enable people. One of the features that Scorecard is still work in progress is raw data without scores, which will enable people the raw data and they can decide what they want to do. That'll be a great feature to solve this particular problem. But I'm not disagreeing to the zombie commits are bad, but it's just the question of, we're already doing this, how do we add another messaging, another label to zombie commits being what it is?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I haven't gone in depth with the code review check, but I should definitely take a look at it and just see if it could fit in there anywhere, or if it's already doing it.
Yeah, it is doing it, as far as I know.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for raising that one. So if there's nothing more on that one, should we go to the last issue or last agenda item, which is renovate?
Yeah, so this should be pretty quick. It's just something I ran into as I was trying to merge PRs this week with hitting our API limits.
Sorry, if you don't mind, can you open that issue, please?
Yeah, sorry, for background, Renovate supports grouping PRs for dependency updates instead of Dependabot doing, like Naveen said, 10 to 12 PRs that every time we merge one, we have to rebase or merge the other one. So you get sort of this quadratic hit on our API usage. And it's something that I could look into if we decide that we want to do this again, like Salsa did.
Yes, I was the one who wrote this, but then later when I was speaking about this with David Wheeler, which he specifically mentioned is, now you're bringing everything in part of one commit. How do you know, or he asked that question to me, how do you trust bringing everything in together? Because then it becomes harder to cherry pick which change what. And thinking about this, there are 2 things to it. One is we have to tweak our Dependabot config to say maximum 5 PRs open. Right now we have about 40 PRs open. Like we can say, hey, after I merge one, open the next one, so that we can reduce our usage, but still have that feature. I'm not against Renovate. Renovate is a great tool, but it's just that bringing all the changes into one PR becomes risky. It's just one time that something has to go wrong, and we don't want to be in the news.
All right, yeah, I think limiting the depend upon open PRs would help.
Yep. Okay, cool. We have a consensus, unless somebody else thinks of something else. I can take that PR. It's a pretty simple fix. I'll do that. And I'll clean up. There's a bunch of PRs that are pending. I'll clean up to reduce our usage.
Cool. Yeah, and I know Azim's working on some developer velocity fixes right
Yes,
now, hoping to reduce just
Yep.
API usage in general.
Yep.
All right, yeah, that's it for that one for me.
Cool. I believe that's the last item on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to bring up or discuss? Okay. Cool. Well, that's all for today then. And we should pick a facilitator for next. Okay, Naveen, you're on for October 6th. Okay.
Hey.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone.
See you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.